Our journeys may differ, but the human desire to belong is universal. September 5th, Teachers' Day in India, is about teaching. I'm delighted to begin my podcast series celebrating Teachers' Day in India. Hi, I'm Hema Ramanathan. As a teacher educator, an author, a scribbler, as someone said, a pedagogical polymath. Welcome to the HemaZone. I build bridges across diverse perspectives and cultures. Every first Wednesday of the month, I'll weave a narrative on a compelling topic on the arts, movies, music, books, and education. September 5th, Teachers' Day in India, is about teaching. It is dedicated to all educators from nursery teachers to university professors in memory of Dr. S. Radhakrishnan, India's first president. He taught philosophy at the University of Madras, Mysore, Calcutta in India. He was also at Manchester College and Oxford in the UK. Oh, and he was also vice chancellor at Andhra University and Banaras Hindu University before he accepted the appointment to the highest office in independent India. He was a teacher by profession and instinct. When his students wanted to celebrate his birthday, he said, "Instead of celebrating my birthday, it would be a privilege, a proud privilege, if September 5th is observed as Teachers' Day." That's why we have September 5th. Isn't that lovely? Before I start reminiscing, about my teachers and my days as a teacher, I'd like to get one thing off my chest. And this really bugs me. I speak not only as an English teacher, but I'd like to be specific about what we talk about, but it's also about giving credit where it is due. On this day, many of us get messages, teachers, from our students, which is lovely. But many messages are also directed at coaches, mentors, guides. Yeah, it's true. We learn from our guides, mentors, and coaches, but they're not teachers. All teachers may be coaches, guides, and mentors, but the reverse is not true. Is there really a difference? You bet there is. Okay, let's look at the context of teaching and of CGNs, right? Teachers work in schools, very formal sectors, strictly regulated, regularly inspected by boards of education. They're accountable for their own and the students' success and performance. And you know what happens if a student fails and a school doesn't get 100%, right? Let's look at CGMs. Coaches, guides, and mentors, they work in the non formal sector. What kind of oversight do they have? Now, coaches may have a little more than mentors and guides, a little more accountability, maybe. The class are definitely more structured. But then if parents complain, most of the time it is, okay, there's a door, go. Don't let it hit you on your way out. It is intensive, individualized session. Now, with mentors and guides, no accountability. After all, they do it out of the goodness of their heart. So who holds them accountable? And accountable for what? And class strength. Like I just said, coaches work usually on one-on-one, maybe a small group. Teachers, if you're lucky, you'll have a class of 25. Most times it is what, 50? Let's look at credentialing. Teachers need to have a BA, a BEd, an MA, an MEd. University profs are now required to have PhDs. Coaches may be credentialed by their institutions or whatever sports they play. but it's more on the achievement that they've had in terms of how they play their sport. Guides and mentors, I've never heard of credentialing for any of them. If you have, let me know. Let's look at selection. Where who is placed? Teachers don't have a choice of who's in their classroom. They teach whoever is there. Students are admitted into a school, they get into a classroom, and they're allotted to a teacher. The teacher can't turn and say, I don't want so and so in my class. I want so and so in my class. Never flies. Parents may decide they want to move their students from one teacher to another, but the teachers never get a choice. Coaches, guides, and mentors, totally up to them. If they decide they don't want X in their group, X isn't there the next time. It makes a huge difference when you have that kind of choice. What does it imply for teachers, right? Like I said, we learn from many people at different points in our lives. At different points, we need coaches, we need guides. By all means, respect your coaches and guides and mentors. But on September 5th, could we just honor our teachers and only the teachers and not conflate them with the coach, mentor, guide role? This day is not dedicated to learners, but to those who teach them, whether they want to learn or not. One day, just one day in a year, let teachers be remembered for who they are and what they do, not who we are and what we want them to do. Maybe then we'll begin to understand and respect how much we expect from teachers and what value they bring to our lives. Is there anybody on earth who doesn't remember their teachers? No, maybe not all teachers, but some teachers. There was always some that we loved, some that we liked, and some that we don't ever want to think about or see again. The last is only very few, fortunately. I'm going to talk about my teachers because there were so many that I really loved. Early teachers that I had, Ms. Tara, Ms. Rangamani. Many of you may remember Dr. Ananda Lakshmi, Dr. Kalyan Lakshmi. They were all my early teachers. They were so kind and so sweet and gentle. As a kindergartner, that's what I remember. Them teaching me to dance, being patient with us, and being so loving. We'd sit on their laps, we'd roll around, and they were so sweet. As I grew up, there was Mrs. Indrani Subha. She was delightful, but the poor woman had such trouble with me. She taught me science. And every time I had to draw something, it was, why can't you draw what you see? What is this? Is it a beaker or a round bottom flask? Nobody can tell the difference. The poor woman had a really rough time with me. There was Mrs. Meenakshi Subramaniam, very sweet, very motherly. I need to tell you the story of when I first wore a sari. The first time I was wearing a sari, it was a pink nylon. It was a Mother's Day. We were allowed to wear, color clothes to school. And I walk into school and there she is with exactly the same sari. She took one look at me and for the rest of the day, she took care to see that she never came anywhere near me. Allowed me to have my moment with that pink sari. Now, how sweet is that? And there was Mrs. Grace Charles, Miss Grace Charles, as she was then, who invited all her students. She taught 3 grade levels, invited all of us to her wedding. Mrs. Emmanuel was such a sweetheart. I don't know of anybody who went through my school who doesn't remember her during that time and doesn't remember her as being the sweetest soul. I don't think she ever said a harsh word to anybody. And then there was Miss Phoebe, my English teacher in the 10th grade, who taught me. We were out on an excursion, and I remember her teaching me to observe very closely. We played a game which is based on observation, and she said, observe. You're not doing it right. And that was a skill that has stood me in great stead all these years. And no, I'm not going to talk about my Bête Noire. No, I'm not going to spoil this day for me. My college days. Talk about stellar faculty. Had Nirmala, Vaiju, Mrs. D, Mrs. John, people who put up with my high spirits and my distractions and never complained about any of that. Mrs. Francis marked me, gave me about 40% on a paper, and she said, I marked you on the 60% of the paper that I could read. You need to improve your handwriting. Otherwise, how do I know what you've written? I still don't write legibly. I still don't know. And then there was Mary Bhaskaran. Such fire and exuberance and imagination, enthusiasm. It was almost, what, 15 years later, 20 years later, that I was in Jakarta. I was teaching there, I was working there. And I was at a party in Jakarta. And I heard this voice behind me and said, Mary B. And I turned on, it was Mary Bhaskaran. I mean, such deep impressions that were left on me. But I think I have to talk about Sir Joseph Michael. She was a head of the department in college. So she turns around. And, to get admitted into the department, we had to have an interview with her. Her question to me was, so what do you think of Shakespeare? I was a brat. I was 16, a total brat. And I said, Shakespeare, overrated. We did one play with him in school. Don't like him. I don't look forward to studying him. My friends thought I was a total idiot. Shakespeare was her area, and there I was telling her off on that. I was never going to get admitted. My goose was well and truly cooked. But then she did give me admission. But further, at the end of the first year, we'd written our paper, I think it was a Hamlet that we'd studied that. She catches up with me in the corridor. And then she says, so, what do you think of Shakespeare now? My jaw dropped. 11 months later, the head of the department remembers one question that she asked one of her hundreds of applicants and then bothers to follow it up. Now, that is good teaching. That is a good teacher, a real model that I never forgot. Not that I was as good as great teacher as she was, but she is a teacher to be remembered. And I did become a teacher, that is. I'm still a teacher, and I've been a teacher for a long time. I should probably leave my children and students to tell the stories of me as a teacher. And thank you, students, for being my students and letting me teach you. Happy Teachers' Day to all of us teachers. Thank you for listening to me today. Share this podcast. Follow THZ on Instagram. Catch me on Facebook at TheHemaZone. And I'll be back with more compelling stories on my reading, writing, travels, on education. Scribble me a note on my webpage at TheHemaZone.com about a person or topic that you'd like me to talk about. Check on the first Wednesday next month for another episode that will nurture the curious and empathetic child in you, the one who isn't afraid to explore, dare, take risks, and celebrate both success and failure.